Thank you so much, Dr. Narayan, and thank you for setting the context at the beginning of the session. I think that was very helpful. So as many of you are aware, yesterday the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs released 3 knowledge frameworks, including one which was on creative redevelopment. And so this session, my talk basically focuses on housing in context of creative redevelopment. So I'm going to present 3 cases to you. All 3 are real-life examples taking on actual site conditions, looking at actual DCR, etc. requirements, and the market studies which were taken into account. 2 of these are under implementation or at different stages, and one of them is right now at the study finalization stage. So the first, in terms of redevelopment, we are looking at an area-based redevelopment, which is mostly slum housing, where we are looking at ensuring that the existing residents and encroachers of that plot are provided housing solution within the same plot and use whatever additional space is available to accommodate additional households, right? So this is a very old model which has been used in PMAY as well in the past. I think what we are trying to do here was to explore how to reduce the burden on the state exchequer while designing such a project. So many of you would have done similar projects in your cities. So the whole question is how to reduce the subsidy element, something that Dr. Narayan was also highlighting. We need to see how to do this. And so within the same plot, after taking into account those who are already residing there, how best to use the DCR flexibilities to provide for additional middle income or additional, not in this specific case, but it could even be some retail space on the ground floor and so on and so forth. So how do we make sure that the projects become more and more sustainable? Now, as the Urban Challenge Fund is launched, hopefully very soon, these kind of projects would be, I think, what would become very attractive if we can achieve that 50% ratio of getting the private sector or leveraging financing from the private sector. So as you can see, we have explored multiple options. I'm sure the presentations will be shared later, so you could go into details. But with each and every option, there are certain pros and cons. We are focused more on in terms of where the subsidy element goes down. And you can see that there are various options that can be tried. Now, DCR also is, the TDR also is one of the tools that has been used probably in Gujarat to look at such options. The second case study talks more about the integrated planning, land use planning, transport and housing that Dr. Narayan mentioned. And we have a number of cities where we have metros coming up. And for long, I think all the cities have kind of understood that the areas or zones along the metro line, especially in the metro area, station areas, can be used for land value capture through redevelopment, right? So this is one such example where we are looking at in the city of Mumbai on one of the nodes. And here you would see, I think the main purpose of this slide is to show that when we are looking at redevelopment, we need to look at both public sector, what the role the public sector needs to play in terms of the implementation of the reconstruction, the redevelopment that needs to happen, as well as that of the private sector. I think when land value capture terminology is used, it is always thought that, you know, you can capture the value of land from day one. That is not the case. If that were the case, the market would have already played out, right? So when we are looking at redevelopment and leveraging the potential of land, we have to be very sure on phasing our project, right? Looking at where the housing, etc., needs to come, which are those phases which the public sector has to come in and finance, and which are those phases where later maybe or maybe in parallel the private sector can come in and finance. The most important thing while designing such a project is that the affordable housing areas, they need to be located within a reasonable walking distance, so 1 kilometer, let's say, of the station, of the mass transit station. One way Gujarat has done this, but one way to incentivize, this is to actually earmark a proportion of area for affordable housing or public housing near the transit stations. So this is the same example. Here you can see we've done uh, a market study and understanding. And based on that, based on the demand which was identified, a proper demand study was undertaken. Segmented solutions were identified, right? So even within the private sector or within the public sector, there were certain segmentations which were undertaken to make sure that we are not delivering a one fit for all solution, because those solutions usually don't end up working very well in the long run. You would also see that the way that the phasing has been done, and I'm not sure if you can see the numbering, but the way the phasing has been done is that it focuses on the affordable housing through public sector first, and it also focuses on certain higher income and luxury housing near the transit stations from the private sector, which brings in the revenues to finance the rest of the housing projects. In some cases, you will hear about the Tamil Nadu Shelter Fund, which Krishna will talk about. Such funding mechanisms can also help in taking ahead redevelopment projects. I don't need to go much into this. I think all of us know that it's important to integrate infrastructure. So whenever we are doing an area-based redevelopment, social and physical infrastructure, provision of these is important to create the land value, right? Now, most DCRs will have some provisions for physical infrastructure. It's the social infrastructure that I've seen based on my experience of working with different cities and states is where I think there's a bit of a lag, and people kind of struggle to understand what to put where. So maybe this is where the central ministry can also come and look at all the guidelines, the UDPFI, for example, how they can be updated to look at this if we really want to push the redevelopment agenda forward. Now that was more with transit stations. This is a third example that I'm showing where we have taken a city, right, and we have looked at how future transit nodes, but also high density or high land value nodes, and we have identified a corridor which was done, of course, by the government. And based on that, undertaken an asset inventory, which identified where are the opportunities for redevelopment. These could be vacant plots or these could be underutilized plots. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, as a first priority, we focused on public land which was available within the public area. So this is a study which is currently undergoing. It's still not finalized. So I'm taking the liberty of presenting this. So within the land plot that was identified that we are prioritizing, you can see that we are looking at a mix of residential. So we're looking at mixed use. The previous example, the focus was more on mixed income. In this, the focus is more on mixed use. So mixed income, mixed use as a concept within redevelopment in high density area, TOD zones, etc. is very important. The creative redevelopment framework also talks about a number of levers, enablers which are required. I will not run through all of them, but I'll focus on two of these. The first enabler that I'd like to focus on is institutional. So one of the major problems when we are doing redevelopment projects is that land ownership within different state and central government departments can be very fragmented. So in one of the cases that we were working on, we had 23 land owning agencies from the public sector as part of a project, right? And it becomes extremely difficult to structure a project around that. We're just presenting an example of Maharashtra, which has this provision of special planning authorities, which allows designating one agency to plan and execute a project on behalf of the entire state government, right? So irrespective of who owns the land, there is one institution which plans and executes it in consultation, of course, with all the land-owning departments. So such kind of innovative structures need to be thought of, again, as part of redevelopment, especially when it comes to housing. The second thing I would like to highlight here is that of upzoning. So many of these redevelopment projects uh, the example of TDR that Sejal presented, these may not be present in that particular state's own DCRs or own policies, right? So the redevelopment project becomes a platform through which some upzoning requests can be put through, which means you are requesting the state government to allow for that particular project some additional things to be looked at. These could be faster approval processes. These could be, incentivizing TDRs. These could be higher heights depending on certain parameters. So these are the two enablers that I'm focusing on. And just in conclusion, in terms of the main takeaways, again, like I said, I mean, these are all examples of sites that we are working on. But we need to move away from site-based redevelopment to area-based redevelopment, and that was the whole purpose of the three illustrations. We do need flexible DCRs to look at encouraging cities to come up with good projects, and we do need the ability to absorb this additional FSI. So Sejal mentioned the 18-meter. But the other problem with this additional FSI is that usually if street frontage is not there, then despite 3, 4 or even higher FSIs, the sites are not able to absorb it. So as part of redevelopment, even if you are doing a housing project, as part of the larger redevelopment, we need to look at whether the right of way of the street frontage can be increased, right? So these kind of innovative thinking, I mean, Dr. Narayan did mention integrated planning, transport, and housing. Effectively, if you translate this down into action, what it means is 3 different or sometimes 6 different departments and agencies need to work together at the city level, right? So these silos need to be broken. So when we are doing these redevelopment projects, such vision would be good to have as part of the project. So that's all from my side. I'll be happy to take questions later. Thank you.